One of my all-time favorite books is The Hunger Games. I love that book, and I enjoyed the sequels as well as the prequel, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. And I just recently found out last week that there is another prequel coming out in March, and I have pre-ordered that. Cannot wait to read it. But The Hunger Games has come into the news once again as the subject of controversy in schools. The Hunger Games has depictions of violence against children and some other mature themes that parents just are not okay with their children reading. And this article right here, the headline says SC parents sought to ban Hunger Games in middle schools. What the Midlands Board decided. Well, we're going to find that out here in just a second, but before we get to that, I want to ask that you please like this video, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button and that notification bell, support the channel so that we can keep these videos going, and thank you in advance. Now, this article is posted on thestate.com, February 26th, 2025. So let's take a look at what it says. Middle school students in one Midland school district will still be able to learn about Katniss Everdeen's struggle against President Snow. The Lexington 1 school board voted to keep The Hunger Games as a book taught in the district schools following a hearing on a parent's request to restrict the popular novel to high school level classes. So it's not that they don't want this book in schools at all. They're just saying, hey, this might not be appropriate for middle school. Let's keep it in high schools. Continuing on, the decision follows a 30-minute hearing Tuesday afternoon, which the parent who made the initial complaint did not attend. Board members upheld the decision made by Lakeside Middle School and a district-level review committee that recommended retaining the book. It says here, Eric Bissell, Lexington 1's teaching and learning director, led the district's review of The Hunger Games. While the committee noted the book depicted violence and includes a reference to nudity, the book doesn't contain any explicit sexual content that is banned by state policy. It was found to be educationally suitable as part of a course on dystopian literature, Bissell said, and the Lakeside student in question was offered an alternative text, The City of Ember, about young protagonists in a post-apocalyptic underground city. In Louisiana, we have the Louisiana Guidebooks, which is the curriculum for English language arts. And if they have not changed it, I believe that one of the units is the giver. And so the instructional unit, the anchor text is the giver, and there are some additional supporting texts including The Hunger Games, which students also read to kind of compare and contrast themes and like ideas, things of that nature. It's just a whole unit on dystopian literature as is being described in this article, so I can see that. And I like that the school or district offered an alternative text to the student who was the student and the family that was not okay with this book. I think that that's a great way to differentiate two different types of students, and so I think that that was a really great thing. So but in summary here, the school and district decided to keep the book in the curriculum. They're keeping it. Now it says here that although the parent didn't speak Tuesday, the board chair, Kathy Hinson, said board members received a binder of material she had submitted about her book challenge. Two other parents and a student also spoke during Tuesday's hearing and encouraged the board not to remove the book from schools, which the board ultimately moved away from. So that's another point that I think is great in this story, is the fact that you have opposing sides. And I like that there was a dialogue, at least to be had in the school board, with, even though the parent didn't show up to support or argue her side against keeping the Hunger Games in school, her voice was still listened to, as well as the voice of those who liked the book and wanted to keep it in the curriculum. So I think that that's great that when school boards are willing to have that dialogue with parents and to work through these types of issues. So, the Hunger Games stays. And what do I think about this? Well, the Hunger Games does touch on some very mature themes. It's been a long time since I read The Hunger Games, but I read The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes last year, which the original Hunger Games was a trilogy. So you had 3 books, and then Suzanne Collins came back and wrote a prequel that follows President Snow, or when he is not president, when he's younger, and he actually has to go into the Hunger Games himself. And that book, when I read it and I finished it, some people around me that I was reading it with or who had also read it, I said, this book is rated R. This book is rated R because it was so dark, and I can't remember the Hunger Games being like that, but I know that the series gets really, really dark. Just the idea of the Hunger Games themselves and pitting children against each other in an arena, having them bludgeon and murder each other is very, very, very intense. And some of the things, genetic experiments on humans, if you're familiar with the Avoxes, they have their tongues cut out. I mean, just there's a lot of really messed up things going on in this society that are questionable. And you have to ask, at what age should children be exposed to these types of things? When should they be allowed to read these things? And I will go ahead and say that I have the Hunger Games in my classroom. I have the book in my classroom. As a matter of fact, I have multiple copies in my classroom library, and I have the entire original trilogy. I think I might have The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes in there as well. However, my classroom library is not open to all students. I make my students take a permission slip home, and if they want to read from my classroom library, they have to turn that in. That is to safeguard me as a teacher, and also to give parents the choice to decide what their students read. And that's really what this whole issue is about, because should books be banned? Well, I think that some books clearly are not appropriate for a school library, and I'm not sure how much educational value they have to add. You probably shouldn't have 50 Shades of Grey in a school library. So that's that. And there are other books that, again, they speak to certain ideologies, or they just contain some material that are on the edge, such as this young adult type material, and which students should read them. I'm not a fan of banning books, but I am a fan of giving parents the choice and keeping parents informed as to the content and the materials their children may be exposed to. So I think that it should be okay for schools to have these things, but I think that this should be disclosed. And if the Hunger Games is an issue, I think that parents should be kept in the light on what materials their students are reading, things of that nature. And if they disagree, then they disagree, and they can be provided an alternate text in order to complete the unit, just as happened in this particular case. Permission slips are a great thing. Like I said, I use that in my classroom, and I think that for some of these books that are deemed questionable, such as The Hunger Games, some of the classics like Of Mice and Men, which I also have in my classroom, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn, which I also have in my classroom. I think that you need to include a permission slip in order to protect yourself against these types of situations or getting any having any discipline placed upon you, especially if you're just a teacher. Now, the curriculum is larger and is out of the teacher's hands, so that's that. But anyways, those are my thoughts on this. But my question here is, what do you think? Have you read The Hunger Games? Is the material in The Hunger Games too adult themed for middle schoolers, say age 10 to 13? And yes, 10, because I believe that I was 10 in the 6th grade. Or, yeah, I was 10 in the 6th grade, I believe. So, yeah, and do you think that The Hunger Games should be banned in schools? And what do you think about book banning in schools in general? Is it a good thing, bad thing? Let me know down in the comment section below. Also, make sure, like I said at the beginning, that you like this video. If you like this content, hit the subscribe button and hit that notification bell so that way you never miss out on content from Classroom Camp. That's all I have for you in this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.